On your screen are two huge talents of Indian chess, Pritika Nandi on the left and Anvi Hinge on the right. You can think of them as the future Humpy and Harika of Indian chess or Divya and Vaishali. Handshake, we are at the under-9 nationals here in Ranchi, Jharkhand. Both the girls are on 5 out of 5. Pritika opens the game with pawn to d4. Anvi brings her knight out to f6 and we have pawn to c4 played here. e6 played. Ooh, she brings her pawn back. That's interesting. She's going to play e6 and Pritika calls the arbiter, saying that she touched the pawn, placed it on e6, placed it back. And Anvi is like, I have not yet left my hand, I just kept it back. So now she has to move the e pawn. And so the clock starts and she plays e5. Whoa, man, what are these mind games? Insane. D takes e5, taken here by Pritika. Knight g4, we have the Budapest Gambit. So I think Anvi takes a very bold decision to play the Budapest. Bishop comes out to f4. Knight c6, attacking the pawn. And knight to f3, defending the pawn. It's interesting that Pritika knows her opening. She is not surprised by Anvi's choice. Bishop check, knight to d2. Very professional. I mean, knight c3 is also a move, but knight d2 is very positionally sound. Queen e7 and now e3 played. There's a small trap here which you should know. If this happens, this is the smothered mate in the Budapest Gambit, but with e3 Pritika takes away all the chances of that happening. Now knight takes e5, knight takes on e5 and black takes back with the knight. a3 is a very logical move now. And Pritika simply goes bishop e2. I like how she is dealing with this position. And Anvi goes a5. Very typical idea. Sometimes the rook even swings from a6 to g6. So white castles. And I wonder if black can go rook a6 here directly. Could be an option. But she decides to take on d2. Kind of unprovoked. I don't know if that was necessary. Maybe she could have begun with short castles. But now black goes short castles and she adjusts all her pawns and pieces and presses the clock. Queen c3 played by Pritika, attacking the e5 knight. I think d6 makes sense when c5 gives white a very nice position. But she goes knight g6, a very surprising move, because now the c7 pawn is hanging and Pritika takes it and asks Anvi, why did you give me the free pawn? I'm pretty sure that Anvi has some idea here, and I think her idea is to play pawn to d6 is what she wants, I guess, to kind of trap the bishop. But the bishop is not getting trapped because bishop b6, bishop d4. I think it's been missed. This idea has been missed. Bishop b6 played and white is now a pawn up and clearly winning. The reason why this position is so bad is because the d6 pawn is isolated. You're a pawn down, but of course you have to be careful because the knight on h4 is lurking around the white king. The bishop is eyeing here and she goes bishop d7. She wants to put a bishop on c6, maybe bring the queen over to g5. Pawn to f3 by Pritika. I like this move very much. I think it's so logical. She wants to play e4, limit the bishop here. Queen g5, threatening a mate in one, nothing less. And a very cool move. Rook f2 defends the pawn on g2. Let's see what Anvi does next. She's thinking here, and she plays rook e8. She attacks the pawn on e3, and I believe e4 is not a bad idea. e4 played. Next up, rook to d1 to attack the d6 pawn. f5 played by Anvi. I think her instinct is right. You have to do something, otherwise your position is just bad. Pawn to g3 attacks the knight on h4. And the knight comes back to g6. White plays e takes f5. Maybe some hope here. If you take with the queen, with the idea of bishop c6, suddenly some pressure, but she takes with the bishop. And Pritika goes queen d4, centralizing her queen. The queen comes back to e7. You know, one of the things that I've realized is that converting better positions at this age is not easy. You have to keep your cool, you don't have to rush. Pawn takes, bishop takes, and now queen f7 makes sense. But she plays queen e5, and this allows the queen trade. Takes, maybe knight takes e5 is a very nice move, because knight e5 you have ideas of knight d3 going into opposite colored bishop position, but she takes with the rook. This is not a good move. Bishop c4 check, and now bishop d4 comes up next after king h8, and Pritika is just pawn up with the bishop pair. Bishop d4. The rook comes back to e7, and maybe just g4. Ooh, that was a surprise. I thought f4 might be a better idea. g4, bishop e6. Now your knight does have the f4 square. Take on e6. Rook takes. And you may want to play f4, but there's rook e4. Oh, she does play f4. This gives a big chance to Anvi. Maybe she's getting back in the game. Rook e4 played here. Pritika goes bishop c3, but now knight takes f4. Just take it. Knight f4. Okay, you can be worried about rook f1. But knight e6 back, and black is okay. But she goes rook f8, allowing f5. Why did Anvi not take, is the question. And now rook f4 played. That's a curious move. I mean, you could potentially go rook takes here, so that if takes f2 is hanging. By the way, rook f4, maybe there was some electricity that went. Rook f4. Both the girls have a nice little smile on their face. Knight f4. The camera has moved a bit. Bishop takes a5. And white is simply now 2 pawns up. So Anvi missing her chance. Bishop comes back to d2. And now h5. This time Pritika can be very, very calm and simply play pawn to h3, and she does it. Pawn to h3 on the board, and knight f6. We have bishop to b4, rook f7. Now the rook comes to g1. Very interesting swing. Anvi goes with a knight to d5, attacking the bishop. The bishop drops back to d2. Knight goes back, and maybe it's time to play g5. King h2 played. So very calmly trying to get in the king in the game. Knight e4 attacks the bishop, and she goes bishop f4. It's not a bad move. She brings the bishop back. And like, you have to move the bishop. Pritika is like, I will move the bishop. Goes bishop b4. King g8. And we have rook to e1. The knight goes back. And now it's time for Pritika to start pushing her pawns. And in fact, there's a big threat. If the knight moves, there's a check coming in, and if king h7, there's g6. So check here, and you have to play knight f8 when you can trade down everything and go into a king and pawn endgame. And that's what Pritika does. Takes. She understands these things very well. This is the winning king and pawn endgame. Takes, king takes. Now just bring the king up. King g3, king f7, and king h4. We have g6 played. You can play f6 here, but she simply takes. King takes, and now a4 is a nice move. You have extra moves, extra waiting moves, and so h5 pawn will also fall after b4. Yeah, doing it confidently with 55 minutes on the clock. King h7, and I think I'll let you enjoy the finish of the game. Truly wonderful play by Pritika, good fight by Anvi, and an overall very strong play. And I think Pritika, with this win, not only moved to 6 out of 6, but also then kept the lead in this tournament until the end. With the final round to go and half a point ahead, she seems all set to become the under-9 national champion. Meanwhile, pushing the pawn forward, and mate coming in very, very soon.